Let's examine in detail how stress causes illness, how those grievances, those resentments, those conflicts from the past predispose you to illness and precipitate the very suffering that you're experiencing. Let's understand this. Mental and emotional distress kills. It predisposes you to illness and disease. Now, this has been researched over and over again because it is what takes the body out of homeostasis. It's what shuts down the immune system. When you're feeling happy and relaxed, you're breathing fully, your body is circulating, you have a positive attitude and outlook on life, you're getting more movement in your life, which helps circulate the lymphatic system to remove the toxins, and you even make better eating choices. When you're feeling good, you eat very differently than when you're feeling upset. We all know that guilty eating, when we reach for carbs, when we do too much of this or too little of that, when we stop exercising because we depress ourselves or we just get so agitated, we get out of the flow of life. The stress response has a sequence. Let's begin to understand the sequence of what's happening. First, there's an emotional, mental, or physical stress in your life that seems a little bit too much for you to deal with easily. This creates stimulation in the hypothalamus. And now that part of the brain begins to secrete different types of messages in the body to release CRF, cortisol releasing factor. This is now the fight or flight sequence moving forward as the pituitary becomes stimulated, the adrenals become stimulated, adrenaline and cortisone becomes released, and now the body-mind response is with frustration, agitation, shallow breathing, increased heart rate, narrowed focus, and you become reactive. This is what happens. Even if it's just small and it's just a little because the person in front of you is driving too slow, or because you're going to be 2 minutes late to your meeting, or somebody's 2 minutes late for the meeting that you're waiting for them for. It doesn't have to be big, stressful, overwhelming situations, because they begin to pile up. And this is why one of the first things that you can learn to do, as we talk about here, is by pausing with centering breath, directed movement, and cognitive redirection, you can reverse the cycle. When you feel your body getting tense, just even a little, you find your jaw, right? And we very often, you find it right in here. You're gritting down your teeth, okay? You're feeling your shoulders get tense. You're rolling them forward a little bit. You're feeling a little constriction in your heart, in your gut, in your legs. All of these are reminders from your unconscious mind-body that you're in a stress response. And it's through awareness that we can begin to reverse it. And that's what we look to do with quantum embodiment. First, when it happens, have the tools and techniques that you can reverse it. In fact, this is what the 7 keys for attention development were all about. The first 4 keys is how to be self-aware, to self-sense when you're off balance. So instead of perpetuating your illness, that you immediately alleviate it, recognize it, and take effective action to return deeper breathing, positive internal dialogue, a strong embodied state, and then either in stillness or movement to be able to just go about whatever you need to circulate and feel strong, centered, and grounded. The stress response all of a sudden activates one part of our nervous system. There are two subsidiary systems within the autonomic nervous system, ANS, the sympathetic system and the parasympathetic system. When we perceive fear, when we see threat, real or imagined, conceive of danger, worry, whatever words you want to use to describe it, all of a sudden the sympathetic nervous system goes into action as it's been trained over millions of years so that it's ready to fight or flight. It immediately shuts down the immune system, increases blood sugar levels, and begins what we shared before of sending all of those chemicals through your body. When you interfere with that, when you shift back into a state of relaxation, being grounded, calm, and present, the sympathetic system shuts down, the parasympathetic system opens up, and now all the feel-good neurotransmitters begin to flood through your body. The serotonin, the GABA, all of the dopamine, just the feel-good chemicals inside circulating, feeling good, being present, being aware. So it's very important to know that every thought creates a biological reaction, so that we can recognize our thoughts and understand what we can do to change them into something that's helpful, that's healing. This is what we do in quantum embodiment. The parasympathetic system maintains the functioning in a state of calm, slowing the heart rate, reducing stimulation, slowing the firing of harmful neuropeptides, and enhancing the immune system. The sympathetic part of the nervous system responds not to just actual threats, but to real or imagined threats. When the mind conceives and believes, it forms itself to achieve. If it is believing and conceiving of threat, danger, it goes into action to be prepared for it. It's not looking for long-term health. And this is something that we developed millions of years ago, because all of a sudden, if there was a big woolly mammoth or dinosaur coming at us and it was getting close, we weren't worried about long-term health. We were just worried about the next 2 or 3 minutes if we can flee from this danger and survive. Because if we didn't, guess what? We wouldn't have to worry about long-term survival, because now we're the dinosaurs' lunch. Okay? And that's another story altogether of what happens then, but not the subject of today. When you step back and look for yourself, I want you to really contemplate times in your life when you felt stressed out. And just thinking about it, you'll notice that you'll start to feel again similar feelings in the body. There'll be constriction, tension. You might start to feel some different nausea inside your stomach, tightness in your chest, an emptiness, an angry energy arising inside of you. That's natural, because when stress becomes distress, there's constricting and threatening influences that begin to happen biologically, mentally, and emotionally. We get tied up in knots. You know that feeling? Yeah. Well, understand that means there's something inside that you're perceiving with danger, with fear. What is it? Why is it happening? Is there another way to deal with that? Is it a real, existing, present danger, or is it imagined danger to your identity of who you think you are? And you're afraid people won't see you that way, that they'll hurt an image in your mind, talk about you, say things about. The mind gets pretty crazy, doesn't it, as it starts to think. We get knotted up in our mind and we don't know the truth anymore, because when you change your emotional state to the stress level, it creates really negative, fearful thinking, negative, fearful decisions, and defense and attack-oriented actions. Not healthy to live a healthy and empowered life. Life's pressures trigger internal reactions in the unconscious mind-body, which you are totally unaware of until sensation is known. Very often, when we get caught in these triggering events, when all of a sudden that particular fuse has been lit, moving towards the gunpowder, we're not even aware of what's happening inside until the pain happens. The pain, the illness, the fever, or the weakness is the message from the unconscious mind-body that something has occurred earlier. Not right then and there, something has occurred earlier, which now set off all of that energy to bring to the surface the constriction, the moving into the sympathetic system, the fight or flight response. And it's not from the present. It's from those buildups from the past. That's what we've got to understand. You're never ill. You're never upset. You're never out of sorts for the reason you think, because it's deeper. It happened earlier. And the mind doesn't want to look there. The ego might say, yes, I want to feel better, but it says, yes, but without looking inside, I don't want to be responsible for it. I want to make somebody else responsible for it. I want to blame this one or that one, not me. Being responsible means being responsible for your actions and for the conditions that you're in. That somehow or another, the decisions you made brought you to where you are today. So we need to do this deep healing process. Otherwise, we create something called tension myositis syndrome. And this is what Dr. John Sarno coined in order to describe the internal process that occurs. Any disorder with multiple manifestations comes from this reduction of blood flow to the tissues. Mild oxygen deprivation from the alteration of muscles is called ischemia. And this is the effects from stress, armoring, and rage. TMS, tension myositis syndrome. This is so important to know because it can cause everything from depression, different pains, illnesses, ADHD, and many other symptoms that most people don't recognize and look to take a pill to deal with the symptom. Sigmund Freud looked at this in great detail, and he called it conversion. Freud's conversion is when an emotional state is converted into a physical one. Waves of energy are solidified to become particles, which consolidate and cause inflammation and blockages which impede circulation. Now, let's look at that and make it a little simpler. Life is this constant movement, a wave of energy flowing like the ocean. So the ocean is flowing and rivers are flowing, and all of this flow of the air, flow of the water, flow of everything around us. But the moment that all of a sudden we hold on to it and constrict, we now say, oh, this is dangerous, and we go to the startle reflex, and we code it into our system, danger, danger, threat, threat. All of a sudden, this movement of life that is just non-personal, the winds, the waters, life just happens. And now we hold on to it. So that energy of flow becomes condensed, 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 and becomes a particle, becomes solidified. Now, this, you might understand, is very related to quantum physics, because quantum physics looks at light in just the same manner. It says that light is either a wave or a particle. And particles then begin to aggregate and be able to create stoppages, create masses, create solidity, when waves just flow and it becomes more spatial. And anytime we feel resistance to anything in life, we create the wave and movement of life. We hold it, we compress it, and then we stick it in the body, wherever that part of the body is all of a sudden experiencing it mentally and emotionally, and we begin to hold, compress, condense. And that is the beginning of long-term illness. That creates the blockage, so now we have heart disease. That now creates the blockage of the ischemia and constriction to create high blood pressure. And all of a sudden, all of these things is shutting down the immune system. Then we have to look a little bit further. And I love what Freud says here. He says the motive for being ill is, of course, invariably the gaining of some advantage. This is often called secondary gain. That's right. What we find is that illness also has another purpose: to supply a lack, a sense of scarcity of what's missing. And all of a sudden, when you get ill, people pay attention to you. They start doing loving, caring things for you that otherwise they ignore you. All of a sudden, you have a reason to explain your failures. You have also a reason to not do things you don't want to do. There's lots of advantages that people get from illnesses besides disability, and many people are in disability payments. Trust me, I've worked with so many people, and they came to me because they were ill, but they were afraid to get too much better because then they'd lose their disability and would have to go back to work. And now they would be forced to face their life and be responsible. So we have to look at, is there a benefit, an advantage of being ill? Am I receiving something from this illness that I don't otherwise get? See, this comes back down to motive. This comes back down to precipitation. Because if I believe living my life in one way doesn't get me what I want, and now I find myself, I have an accident here, and now everybody's caring, and they're bringing me foods, and they're calling me up, and they're bringing me flowers, and they're checking on me, and they're being so loving. Oh, come on. Who hasn't remembered that as a kid, that all of a sudden when mommy or daddy were so busy, and now all of a sudden you got the measles or the mumps or you were ill, now all of a sudden, oh honey, let me take care of you, and they wait on you hand and foot, and they give you all the love, and then you get out of going to school and not having to take the tests you don't want to, or doing the things you didn't like to do anyway. See, advantages, okay? Think about it. There can be a lot of benefits there, and this has to be looked at as part of the underlying causes of why we perpetuate illness and why so many people don't want to look within and rather go hospital to hospital, doctor to doctor, looking for the miracle cure out there because they don't want to look inside and say, I have a lot of benefits from this. Even though there's pain, I also get a lot of attention, a lot of love. And so all of a sudden, they're coded in together, and then you get this conflict back and forth. I want to get rid of it, but I don't want to get rid of it. And you'll see, some people are chronically ill their whole life. And most of those people, they have deep, and they've probably repressed it, desires to be loved, and decided that's the only way they get it. The two greatest enemies for pain and TMS are fear and misinformation. True healing is only possible when all 5 levels of consciousness are balanced and aligned. We have to understand that every illness, every imbalance has multiple levels simultaneously. There's the physical level, the mental, the emotional level, there's the spiritual level, and of course, there's the level of interrelationships. And whatever's happening to us, physically, mentally, emotionally, you can't just pull it out and segment and saying, oh, that's just about your mind. Oh, that's just about your emotions. Because we're holistic beings and we are fully integrated, so they're all responding. True healing is when mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and in relationships, you're in an optimal state of balance and functioning. That's wellness. That's true health. A simple example of this is all of a sudden a person is out with their friends and they're fooling around, and one accidentally trips, falls down, and breaks their arm. The arm is then set by a doctor who puts it in a cast, and 6 weeks later, the arm has mended and healed, and they take the cast off, and the arm can be used again. Has healing occurred? No. Why? Because at the same time that the arm may be healed, that person is still angry at the person who accidentally bumped into them and caused them to fall. So they have not healed the relationship, and in fact will no longer talk to that person. So in their mind, the relationship has been severed. Emotionally, they're filled with anger. They no longer have peace, no longer having fun. And emotionally, they are now distraught. Every time they go down that same block, they remember the association of falling down, breaking their arm, losing their friends, and then making a decision, I can't trust the people around me because they're always trying to push me and get me. Now, that generalizes, so now I become afraid to be too close with anybody. Has healing really happened? Until we can remove all of the elements that is interfering with being present, peaceful, loving, open, and strong, there's still a lot of healing work that needs to be done. This is the quantum embodiment approach. Our approach is when they're all aligned and functioning fully. Now we're healed, we're whole, we're complete.